Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Pray podcast today.
Hi, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, can you give myself and the audience a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I am Michelle Couch-Friedman, and I'm the founder of Consumer Rescue, an organization dedicated to helping consumers avoid and navigate problems with the companies that they patronize. And we do that in a variety of ways. Number one, my advocacy team and I act as mediators between businesses and their customers. So if a customer has a problem with a company, they can submit a request directly through our helpline at consumerrescue.org, get help. And our team will review the details of their case and provide some problem solving guidance that the consumer can then use and hopefully fix the problem on their own. We're all about empowerment. But unfortunately, often when a consumer has reached our team, they've already been busy trying to fix the problem for a while. So if that is the case, then our team can escalate the problem to the company directly and advocate a fair resolution. And we provide this service free of charge to any troubled consumer. We do focus heavily on travel related issues, but we also tackle cases that involve services and purchase merchandise as well. And so basically, if you're a consumer and you've paid a company for something and you didn't get what you bargained for, we can help. The second way that we help consumers is through journalism. We publish articles about our efforts so that we can help more than just one individual at a time. Our columns cover topics from current scams we've become aware of, to travel alerts, to common pitfalls that a consumer might encounter. And lastly, we also publish a weekly newsletter that provides insider tips and helpful information. I'm also an ombudsman columnist for the Points Guy and do consumer advocacy over there as well.
That's awesome. So, was there a consumer issue that you had with a company that got you started in all this?
Yeah, well, about 6 years ago, well, 7 years ago now, I'm seeing what year it is now. It's been about 7 years ago. I was planning a trip to Greece, and I booked a hotel, a Marriott hotel through Expedia, and it said it was a 2-bedroom hotel. And I have kids and my husband, and so I booked it. I thought it was a great place to go. Later, a month or two later, after I had made all the plans around that hotel, I received an update from the hotel that what I booked was not what I was going to get. It was only a 1-bedroom place, which wouldn't work for my family. And I wasn't getting a discount or anything, the same price that I booked a 2-bedroom. And I had a reservation booked. I had the receipt, I had the confirmation, and the company was just not going to help me at all. And I went to Expedia, I asked for help. I went back to Marriott. They just kept pointing to each other. That's a mistake with Expedia. Marriott said, yeah, Expedia made this mistake. And then Expedia said, Marriott made a mistake, just back and forth, around and around. But meanwhile, I'm still getting closer to the date of travel, and I don't have, and it was summertime. I didn't have anything booked that would work for my family. So I was scrolling through the internet and I found this website, Elliott Advocacy, and they had a forum. And I made a comment there. Does anyone know what else I could do here? And the advocates there started helping me and telling me what I could do. And then I actually asked for help through their website to their advocacy team. And I ended up not getting the 2-bedroom. That one didn't work out quite as well. I didn't get the 2-bedroom, but I got a refund of anything I paid. And they also gave me $200 so that I could, and I got some help finding a replacement vacation. I ended up at a vacation rental. Then I kept making, I liked where I was. I stayed there at Elliott Advocacy. And next thing you know, I ended up over the course of several months becoming a staff member there. And then eventually I became the executive director of Elliott Advocacy. And that's where I've been for the last 6 years as an executive director of it's a nonprofit. And and then, so now here I am, my service to the nonprofit ended, and I started Consumer Rescue, and many of the people that I worked with at LA Advocacy came with me here to Consumer Rescue. And so we're continuing our mission.
I find the people that are most passionate about what they do, kind of in the field that you and I are in, are people who have had issues
Yes.
and had to figure out how to resolve them kind of on their own or with the help of other
Yeah.
people, and then say, more people need my help. More people need to know how to
Right.
do this.
There's just so many people out there. There's so many consumers need help and they don't know where to go and they don't know what to do or where to turn. And, you know, I'm also a psychotherapist. So my original career is an advocate. I'm a helper. I am somebody who wants to help people. So this to me was a place, it was a logical conclusion, you know, to go and help more people through Consumer Rescue. It doesn't have the same type of stress level as being a psychotherapist. You can solve problems much more quickly as a consumer advocate than as a therapist. So that's how I'm here.
But I assume a lot of the therapist skills really help kind of
Absolutely.
de-escalating and helping people approach their issues reasonably and calmly.
Yeah, it's absolutely true because, you know, people who contact me and my team, they're in distress and they're often, you know, some people are in tears. They've lost thousands of dollars. Some are just really angry. And that type of emotion can interfere with getting your consumer problem resolved because they're shooting off emails to the companies and yelling and threatening never to use them again. And that stops the flow of the mediation. And so it's really important, you know, when I start dealing with a consumer, that I help them to keep that kind of emotion quelled. And we're going to go in and solve this problem in a calm and logical way. This is why you're owed your refund. This is what we're going to bring. People often write a novel to the companies that they are having a trouble with and telling them everything that happened leading up to the problem, into the problem, after the problem, 10 years ago, before the problem started, you know, and what many consumers forget is that whoever's reading that email is likely receiving hundreds of complaints each week. And you want to make your complaints stand out so that that person wants to help you. So you make it short and polite and just stick with the facts. What do you want today? What happened in like bullet points? And here's how we're gonna, you know, here's what I need you to help me with. And that works much better. So yes, my therapy training, I think has helped me with being a mediator, a consumer mediator now.
I'm sure it has.
Mhm.
And so I assume you also, in addition to complaints between consumers and legitimate organizations, you get a lot of complaints about, hey, I was scammed. What can I do?
Yeah, that's a problem. I receive a lot of complaints from consumers who have been scammed out of thousands of dollars. The Cash App, Zelle, has been at the forefront of these scams I've been covering it for the last 2 years. Um, it has become the preferred method of payment for scammers worldwide. So the problem is that many consumers are not using the app in the way it was meant. You
Hmm.
can use Zelle safely and not become a victim of a scam uh, if you understand what that is meant for. It is meant to send money to friends and family or people you know personally. Um, and if you follow those rules, you won't get scammed. But what's happening is scammers know that most people don't read the terms and conditions of what they're using. And so a scammer will sell you something on Facebook Marketplace. And of course, they want you to pay with Zelle. You don't know this person and you send them $3,000 to buy a Gucci bag and you get a box of rocks.
Hmm.
Zelle is not going to help you get your money back, and neither is Facebook Marketplace. And I've had many cases like this where people thought they were getting a bargain on Facebook Marketplace or other, you know, marketplaces, and is when you hear someone asking you to make a stranger to give you, make the payment with the Zelle app, you're dealing with a scammer, because that's against the terms and conditions of the use of Zelle. And if you don't know that person, the bank isn't going to tell you who that person is. So you've sent $3,000 to somebody via Zelle and you don't know who they are. It's as if you handed $3,000 to a stranger on the street who had a mask on their face and then they ran away. That's all. You're not going to get the money back. So it's really, really important. And I received these horrible emails every day without fail. From victims of these Zelle scams, people who have thought they were purchasing a puppy, and there's a picture of a cute puppy, and they even named the puppy, and they can't wait, and they sit at their front door waiting for this puppy to arrive by this special transport that they paid $3,000 via Zelle to receive. And then when the clock ticks past the time that puppy was supposed to arrive and it doesn't arrive, then it suddenly starts to become clear that there's no puppy coming, and you just tossed $3,000 down the drain. So that's one of the most frequently types of scams that I receive complaints about is the buying a pet and pay with it with Zelle, kittens. And people set up these really amazing websites that look real, and they've got all sorts of cute little puppies and whatever it is, they're sometimes it's cats, and it looks like a real website, and it is a real website until you pay them, and then it disappears the next day and the website is no longer there. And then the scammer has gone to the next victim. They set up their website somewhere else. It's very easy to set up a website and leave it up until you catch one victim, and then it goes away and they start somewhere else.
I imagine with pets, it's so easy because the person's starting to develop an emotional attachment. And once that emotional attachment is there, kind of the warning signs kind of get pushed off to the side.
That's what happens. They see this little puppy and sometimes there's videos, cute little videos, and this is the puppy you're going to get. And there it is. And what do you want to name it? The scammer will ask you, what do you want to name it? And then they'll change the name on the website so that you named your puppy. And and then they develop this relationship. So then what happens is the victim of this particular scam, it's not just a one-hit wonder. They get you to pay, say, $1,200 for the animal. Then after you paid that, next thing you know, they say, okay, now you have to pay for this transport company, because we found out that the airline, the aircraft is not pressurized properly. So now you have to pay another $1,800 for this special kennel. Then you pay that. Next thing you know, oh, wait, your puppy got sick on the way, and now we need you to pay another $800 to the veterinarian. And then you see how step by step, when you first hear somebody lost $5,000 to a pet scam on Zelle, you might say, well, how could that happen? But it's incremental steps. These scammers know, and they're phishing. So they see you take the first bait, then they're going to go the next and next and next, and they'll keep going until I've seen them go 4 or 5 steps until finally the victim said, no, now I realize I'm in a scam. But they will keep going. They'll come up with other many other things. Oh, now I need to buy a blanket for the thing, and it's only a special blanket that only this one place can sell. And it's shocking, some of the tactics that these people use. Once they see they have somebody on a hook, they'll just keep tormenting the person until there's nothing, until the person's bank account is empty. And that's happened many times.
Yeah, that's been my experience with people, is that it's usually not a single incident, but it started with a small amount of money, and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, longer and longer, more elaborate stories as to why some additional money needs to be paid.
Yeah. It's same like with online romance scams, the same thing. They start out, it's need a couple $100, and then next thing need a little bit more, and a little bit more. It's never like, give me, $100,000 right now. They have to do this little by little, or you will, and then once you're emotionally attached, you don't want it to be a scam.
Yeah.
And so the psychology of that is, you want it to be true, because in your mind, you've developed this relationship with this puppy or this kitten, and you've already put a bed in the corner of your house, and you're just waiting for the dog to arrive. So you don't want it to be a scam. But the problem is, the longer you delay and don't admit that it's a scam, these scammers will continue to extract money out of your bank account.
Mhm. So I was also reading on your website about a Zelle scam that happened where a person kind of just received money out of the blue,
Yeah.
and it turned out to be a scam. Can we talk about that as well?
Yeah. So that is a scam. It's actually started with Venmo, because Venmo, you can actually use credit cards to fund your payments. Zelle, you can't. Zelle are bank to bank transfers. So you can't, the traditional chargeback scam, which is what that is, isn't supposed to be something that can happen on Zelle. 2 years ago, I spoke to Zelle, and the executive said, don't worry, you can tell your readers that they won't fall for the Zelle scam, the Venmo chargeback scam, because these are bank-to-bank transfers. Zelle's, their transfers can't be reversed. Well, that was 2 years ago. And since that time, I have seen repeatedly that they actually have been reversed. Each individual bank, you've got a banker sitting there, a customer service banker, they have some flexibility there, and they can actually do these reversal. Now, the traditional chargeback scam isn't available because these aren't credit cards, but the transactions can be reversed. So I have been now warning consumers that if you receive money suddenly from a stranger, don't try to send it right back. You have to sit there and wait and see what happens. Ask your bank for help. In some cases, I have some other articles that'll come out shortly where the police were involved, and the police actually facilitated the return of the money to make sure that nobody, because both sides then become suspicious of the other. Why did you send me money? And the other one is like, why won't you give me back my money? So if you receive money via Zelle by surprise into your account, just wait. Don't do anything with it. Leave it sitting there. Contact your bank. First of all, ask for guidance, and ask for guidance in writing, because a customer service agent might say, oh, you can send it back, which is the party line. They say, send it back. You work it out between this person, and that's, that'll be safe. But it really isn't, because, I've seen too many of these situations go wrong. And I've seen cases where it looked like it was going to go to violence. Like they start threatening each other. And I got involved and said, wait, nothing is worth, losing your life. This person is threatening to kill you if you keep on asking for your money back. So tensions are often really high with these. And I would say that most people are not trying, if you receive money from somebody by accident, most of those transactions on Zelle are just really people making a mistake. Every day I receive a complaint from somebody who mistyped one number, and it went to the wrong person. And the banks will not facilitate a return that way either. They just tell you that you should ask for your money back. So the banks are part of the problem here. They're not protecting the users of this app, because they're giving them advice that I think could easily escalate to violence at some point, because consumers want some protection. They want, I made a mistake and I sent $3,000 to someone by accident. I meant to send it to, my mom. Can you please help me get it back? And I've spoken to the heads of multiple banks, Bank of America and Chase, and I spoke with Zelle at length. And the line is, be careful when you're making these transfers. There are multiple, safety nets. The first time you press the recipient's phone number, it doesn't send immediately like that. Then there'll be a screen that says, are you sure you want to send this to? And then the number appears again and the name that's associated with that. What happens is people in their haste to send their money, they scroll, people are impatient and they just scroll right through that warning. Are you sure? And when I look at it, I say, well, look, you sent this to the wrong person, but this is clearly not the person you wanted to send it to. What happened there? And, oh, well, I was in a hurry. I didn't see that warning, but the warning is very clear. It tells you who you're about to send the money to. So this is the main point here for consumers is, if you're going to use Zelle, make sure you understand what it is, what your rights are, which you don't have a lot. It is, I always say, it's an instant way to send money, but it's also an instant way to have a disaster if you don't follow the rules and you don't pay attention to the prompts on the screen. Most mistakes that I see through Zelle, if it's not an outright scam, most mistakes involve a consumer who is not taking their time, who isn't understanding what the app is, and who just breezes past all the warnings and shoots off their money to a total stranger, who then becomes concerned that they're scamming them. So these can all be avoided if you just take your time, slow down. And if you don't know what the Zelle app is, you don't understand it, take it off your phone. I've had many people who didn't understand what it is, put it on their phone, and didn't have the smallest clue what the dangers are with that app. So, that would be my biggest piece of warning.
Would you recommend, I know with, I think of like when I set up like direct deposit or something like that with a company, or even other companies I've done business with, they'll do a micro transfer.
Mhm.
They'll send two or three, do two transactions, one of 3 cents and one of 15
Yes.
cents.
Yeah,
And then,
that's a very good.
as a way to verify that it's the right account and they're
Yeah.
not losing the
Yes,
whole payment.
we've recommended many times that to have another layer of protection, you could send $1 first to your recipient and then call them up and say, did you get it? And then if they didn't get it, you did something wrong. And that still doesn't take away the possibility that when you send it again, you breeze past those warnings and send it to the wrong person, because that's not going to send it to the exact person you sent it unless you type in the exact thing again. So yeah, that's a good idea. But have the same type of carefulness when you try to resend it, to make sure that you're
Yeah.
still sending the right person. I've seen all sorts of mistakes that were so easily avoidable, and they cause months and months of headaches and really, really horrible times for consumers who, have thousands of dollars on the line. And there's just no simple answer. I always say with the Zelle app and the other cash apps as well, be very careful before you hook one of those up to your bank account. This is not a bank. That app is not a bank. It doesn't come with the same kind of, protections that your bank account has. It is like it's a novelty. I think it's like a novelty, like it's something that it's fun to be sitting at dinner and you can pay your friend, $10 for your portion of the dinner. That's easy, right? But people are using it for all sorts of things that it wasn't meant for. It wasn't meant for you to buy a expensive purebred puppy. And scammers have seized on this. I just jump on this, that this is like a dream come true, especially during the pandemic. A dream come true for scammers who can't be out and about, doing their normal business. So they can sit in their house and they don't even have to, I used to get a lot of complaints about the mystery shopper scam, where the scammer would send you a check and you had to cash. I mean, it was all sorts of steps before they would get their actual pay. Now they can just tell you, here, you hook this up, and immediately you send they've got you, and they're gone before you even realize that you have been suckered for, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. This Zelle app is a dream come true for scammers sitting in their house who don't want to have to make up much effort going out and about and scrolling the internet looking for things. Like, this is so easy. Like, you just make yourself up a website, sell a fake dog, go on VRBO and set up a fake listing for a property you don't own, and then get the person to send you a deposit with Zelle. That's the latest scam I've been receiving complaints about. They set up fake listings on VRBO, and then they send emails that look like it's coming straight from VRBO, but it's not. And it says that VRBO wants you to make a payment for your deposit using Zelle, that it's a recommended payment method. That's not true. VRBO will never ask you to make a payment off their platform, and definitely never with Zelle. So if you receive ever, I think what some consumers, many travelers don't realize is that not all listings on VRBO or Airbnb are real. There is a percentage of those listings that are just sitting there. They're scammers. They are scammers waiting for you to, they're phishing. They're waiting for you to click on their listing, and they're gonna, give you this spiel about, how, first of all, they're going to ask you to try to get off of the platform. Don't make any payment on VRBO. They're going to give you a better deal if you now come with them and do your dealings off the platform. No reputable host on VRBO or Airbnb will say that to you, because that's a violation of their contract with the hosting platform. They are not supposed to be trying to lure VRBO guests or Airbnb guests away from the platform. So when someone starts that type of thing, then you're probably dealing, well, at the least, you're dealing with a host that's not following the rules of their contract with the hosting company.
To me, that's always one of those, on any platform, it's always shady when, and a warning site when the person is trying to get you off the platform. If it's a dating site and the person's like, hey, let's take this over to WhatsApp, or
and oh, guess what? If you come off of the VRBO platform, the Airbnb platform, I'll give you a $500 discount. So they try to play through the person's bit of greed or wanting to save money, but it ends up backfiring, because there's no you have no protection. It's almost, I always say, it's almost impossible to be scammed using Airbnb or VRBO if you follow their terms and conditions, because they have safety nets set up along the way. And if you leave the platform, you're jumping out of the safety net.
Yeah.
Now you have nothing. You do not have any protection if you follow a scammer off to wherever and send them a wire transfer or a scam, a Zelle payment or whatever. You're not going to get your money back. I mean, sometimes I'll get their money back just because I feel bad for them, and I do have nice friends over there, but the reality is that you're likely not going to get your money back. Nobody should ever stroll off of these platforms with anybody, because that is the prime warning sign of that you're in the clutches of a scammer.
Is there any way to tell from the listings, either on VRBO or Airbnb or any of the platforms, that something might be a scam?
Yeah, sure. There are certain indicators that I always warn people about. So first of all, you want to look at a listing. A host wants to present their property in the best possible way. So if the photos look like something that were taken in 1970, or or they're blurry, or if you look at the property and the the wallpaper. I mean, it looks like something from a different era. That's probably your first sign that the scammers aren't really great photographers or anything. Usually what they do is they use stock photos they found on the internet, or they use some old photos they've been using for years in their scams. So you want to look at those pictures. And I always do this. I take photos. I add the images into Google Images,
Yeah.
and that's a good way to find out if those images exist anywhere else. I've uncovered scams where a scammer was on VRBO, and the pictures that were on the VRBO website, I put them into Google Images, and it was actually a valid vacation rental on Airbnb in a different city, and that was a super host. So I knew that the one on VRBO was a scam. And we, the VRBO gave the consumer back his money after that. But so if you're really a little bit paranoid, you can put the pictures into Google Images and see if they exist anywhere else. And then I always say, if you look at the reviews, and if there are no reviews at all, I would say use that as a bit of a warning sign, but not always, because obviously a host has to start out somewhere and they may not have any reviews yet. But you want to use it in conjunction with a bunch of other, signs, whether this should be considered, what's the overall picture of this listing. I always say that if, not all listings that don't have any reviews are scams, but all scams listings do not have reviews. And that's because VRBO and Airbnb require you to have had a certified list, that you actually had stayed at the property before they will allow you to review your stay. So the listings under these two hosting listing sites are real. So if a property does not have any reviews at all, take that as a word of caution, like, okay, when did they appear on this website? The fake listings go up and come down very quickly. So if a scammer puts up a listing and he catches one victim, he's going to take that down and then put another one up, several days later. You can only do one scam typically before VRBO or Airbnb detect that it's not a real listing. But it's important that consumers realize that the listings on those properties on that listing site, they're not vetted. Nobody goes out. Like, I receive emails from consumers where they are imagining that VRBO and Airbnb are management companies, like rental companies. They're not. These are listing properties, kind of like a dating site, but for vacation rentals. They're just hooking you up with a host, a property. So they're just a meeting site between host and guests. They're not vetting the properties. They're not going out and checking out the property to see if it really exists, or even if it looks the way that the host says it looks. But most legitimate hosts want to, are putting up a very nice listing, and you should be able to contact the host before you send any money. There's a button that says message host or something. Don't confuse it with the book the property, because that's another problem. If you click that, you've just booked the property. But message the host and ask a question, and then pay attention to, first of all, does the host answer you quickly? Because a real host wants you as their guest, and so they're going to pay attention and they want to answer you as quickly as possible. And then if they answer you quickly, pay attention to their grammar. If there's somebody hosting a property in Los Angeles, but they sound like they don't even have any grasp of English, that's another sign that this host may be not in the United States, and they are sitting somewhere overseas, getting ready to scam you out of your money. So pay attention to the grammar, and then, just once you have, and also beyond just will the host answer you and do they sound like they're real, um, you want to keep that in mind, because if they don't answer you, or they finally answer you after several days, remember, if you've got a problem with that property, VRBO and Airbnb aren't going to help you. They're not management. That host is who you're going to have to ask for help. And if they don't answer you promptly when they're trying to get you as their customer, move on. There's thousands and thousands of properties on these sites. So if the host doesn't seem real interested in helping you, they're not going to become more interested if you have a problem with the property.
And I would assume someone's offering a 4-bedroom luxury mansion overlooking the Hollywood Hills for $200 a night.
Mhm. Yeah.
If the pricing is significantly off, you should be concerned also.
Yes, you definitely should be, because if every other property in that area for that a similar property is way more expensive, then you've got to say, whoa, what's going on here? You may want to ask the host, what is this about? Like, why are you way, I mean, maybe we don't know, but you can ask. But I do know that recently I dealt with a Airbnb scammer 2 times, the same scammer. He was manipulating the listings on Airbnb and renting an apartment in London. And he had this beautiful condo pictures. It was a good price. But what he was doing was he was saying it was a full property, and it wasn't. He was going to be living there with you. And as soon as he would book the property, he would spring this on the guest that this is a shared property. You're here in the house with me, and of course they don't want to do that. So then when they tried to cancel, he kept their money. And so I took photos of how this listing was changing over time. On the day, some days it was listed as a full house, and some days it was listed as a shared house. And when Airbnb was investigating, it happened to show up as a shared property. So they said, oh, he's definitely telling people it's a shared property, but he wasn't. This is 2 different. And then I received a third. He's now kicked off of Airbnb. They finally reviewed his account and realized that he must be doing what all these consumers are accusing him of doing, because 3, and I'm sure there are more. I couldn't have possibly, what happens, I write an article about something and then I receive lots of other similar complaints, but this was usually, it's just about Airbnb in general, right? But
Yeah.
this particular one, I was receiving complaints about the same scammer over and over. I'm like, he's just running wild. It's the same thing. It's the same property. And, people with kids were booking it because it was a good deal. And it was right near the London Eye. It was a great property, but you had to live with this guy if you wanted that good deal, but he wasn't revealing that. I mean, shared space rentals are not really for families. I mean, you don't want to be sharing it.
I don't know that they're for anybody, but
well, some people like it.
That's true. It's like a hostel then.
When I wrote that story, I heard from people, because I had the same opinion, and I put that little narrative in my story, and I heard from people that said, I like shared space. I get to know local people. They give, we like to sit around the table and eat dinner. I mean, that's not for me, and I don't think it's for most people, but it is. I mean, that's how Airbnb started. It was like you're surfing from place to place, and all of their properties were shared space. Now they've moved into, what we know of today, but they still have shared space. VRBO does not allow shared space rentals. So if you want to be 100% sure that you're not getting a surprise shared space rental, VRBO is the way to go. But Airbnb has things set up, so you should never get a fake. You shouldn't ever end up in a shared space rental, but it happens. I mean, I had actually on VRBO, I had a host who was listed on both Airbnb and VRBO, and she forgot where she had sent her where she had gotten this guest from, and the guest arrived in Switzerland with his family and his cat, and they get into the bed and they're sleeping, and 1 o'clock in the morning she opens the door and comes in, and she had rented him a $10,000 for a month, a $10,000 apartment through VRBO, which doesn't allow shared space rentals. but she intended to stay with him. And he was like, I did not book this through Airbnb. You have to get out of here. She
Oh,
wouldn't go, so he had to go. And then VRBO at the time, they didn't believe that she had done this. And he almost lost his $10,000, but
oh my goodness.
a happy ending. He got his money back. And so, but there's all sorts of scams out there in the vacation rental field as well. So, but they're easily avoidable as well. I mean, if you just read through all the listing and then, look for those warning signs, and stay on the platform. That's the number one thing. Stay on the platform, make all your payments through the platform, because as long as you do that, you'll be protected. If something, you get to the property, it doesn't exist. It's not there. But people get drawn away and, to save a few bucks. And it's devastating when they find out they don't have a vacation rental and they don't have their money either.
Oh, that's awful.
Mhm.
And potentially, I can't imagine how stressful it would be if it happened when you're overseas also.
If you just show up, at the property and it doesn't exist. I have
Yeah.
a case recently where a hotel chain sent somebody to a property that's been closed 2 years, and they arrived in South Africa in the evening, ready to check in, and the hotel was closed. It was a transit hotel, so it wasn't even, they didn't want to they weren't intending to go out into Johannesburg. But they had to, because the hotel was closed. It had been closed for 2 years. So,
That's a pretty big snafu.
yeah, it is. So I'll be writing a story about that one. That is a very interesting one. But
I definitely look forward to reading that one.
yes, yeah, yeah. Well, there's one thing about this job here is never a dull moment. you know, there's sometimes very frustrating. I hear about just horrible, horrible situations, and some of them I can't help. Some of them, that's why I'm here with you, and I'm writing articles, because prevention is really the best way to in these situations, because you don't, once you're in the situation, a lot of these, especially if you're dealing with a straight out criminal, a straight out scammer, they're not going to mediate a case with me. I can't call up, a scammer and say, hey, you did something wrong here. You took $5,000 from, that's not going to happen. So I have nobody to mediate with. So I have to have, my team and I have to have somebody to, a non-criminal to deal with. But, scammers aren't known to be reasonable.
No.
I've never met one yet that will actually bend to my will and give back money. I have contacted scammers, so I have sent emails to scammers, but no success.
Yeah, I would. My general rule of thought when it comes to scammers is if you've lost money to a scammer, you're not going to get it back. There are some circumstances where things can happen where you can get some of the money back, but
Yeah.
for the reality is it's probably gone for good.
I mean, the worst is the scammers that are preying on elderly people who sometimes their hearing isn't well, and they'll call them on the phone and tell them, pretend that they're their kid, their grandson or something like this. I'm in jail. I need $200 in iTunes gift cards. Grammy goes out and buys these iTunes gift cards, and then all she do is scratch them, scratch off the numbers and give them to the scammer, and then this grandson will be free. It's terrible.
Yeah.
These scammers are, I mean, they're just horrible. They have they have no bounds to the type of people they will take advantage of.
Yeah.
So
It's very unfortunate. So as we wrap up here, can you tell us what the website again is, and any places people can find you on social media, and so they can read more about what you have?
yeah, so come to consumerrescue.org, and you'll see all sorts of travel fiascos and fixes. I've fixed a lot of this stuff, my team and I. And you learn a lot. Like, I make sure every article that we publish has tips and guidance how you could avoid this, or where things went wrong and how they could get better. Our main goal is to empower consumers so that you don't end up in these type of situations. And if you do, then you know where to contact me, and I'm there too at consumerrescue.org/get help. And we're there 24 hours a day. Like my colleague, he works the night shift, I work the day shift, and we've been working together for over half a decade. And we love to answer consumer questions, and we directly mediate your case. If you've got a case and a company will not respond to you, and you're in the right, contact me at consumerrescue.org, and I'm happy to help. And my colleague Dwayne, he's great. He's a great consumer advocate as well. And we want to make sure that we defend consumers as much as we possibly can.
That's awesome. And social media accounts?
So I am on Facebook at Michelle Couch-Friedman Consumer Rescue. It's a long name, but that's my Facebook page.
We will put it in the show notes,
Yeah,
so people could just click on it.
Yeah, but it's my name, Michelle Couch-Friedman Consumer Rescue, and I post our articles there too. And I love to have people ask questions there. We answer from there as well. I have a newsletter that I send out once a week, and you can subscribe to that newsletter. From our homepage, there's a subscribe button. If you put that in the show notes, that'd be good too.
We'll do that.
But I send out a newsletter every week, and I have links to our articles on Consumer Rescue and the Points Guy, and little tips and things maybe we started to become aware of. We haven't really received complaints yet about it, but we're starting to see some trends in some problem or whatever. So try to give out a lot of useful information. It's all everything is free on our website. We don't charge anybody for anything.
That's awesome. I'll definitely sign up for myself, because I'm always curious of what the latest trends are and what's going around.
I'll sign up for yours too.
Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you. I would love to be here. It's great.